Eri, before we dive into the mechanics of conflict and connection, I want to ask you this. What have you learned about the stories we tell ourselves, especially in the moments we feel most afraid about losing love?
Great question. So I want to make sure I heard this right. So what are those stories we tell ourselves in those moments right before when? Say it again.
When we're afraid of losing love, when we're
Oh
just, I
yeah.
guess,
Oh
when a
man.
nervous system might be out of whack, perhaps even.
Yeah. Yeah, of course. So I mean, how who hasn't been there, right? We make these decisions and so many of the things we do and our reactions are based on these fears of what if we lose love? What if we lose this person we want to be with? And and loneliness can be such an overwhelming feeling, so we want to do everything possible to avoid losing love. And since children, we've been programmed or created all these wonderful strategies to make sure we don't lose love. We've created all sorts of very creative things that worked well for us as kids, but then we took these strategies with us into adulthood, and here we are using the same strategies, and they're not going to get us what we want. So, in those moments when we're triggered and we're like, I'm so afraid, I don't want to lose you, most of the time, what we're doing is we're creating some sort of story in our head and then believing the story. So, we're creating a story of that if I do this or if I say this, things could go terribly wrong. When we're really caught up in our heads and we start going back into those strategies. And the strategies oftentimes are more based on either attachment styles or they might involve a lot of trauma responses. The trauma responses, if you are unfamiliar with them, or just a refresh: fight, flight, freeze. Freeze could be your physical body is frozen. It could also be you're doing what we call stonewalling, and in your brain, your brain is going on loop repeat, like, why does he always do this to me? Why does he always do this to me? Why does he always do this to me? So that's stonewalling. And then the fourth one that most people don't really know a lot about is the people pleasing part. It's also known as fixing or fawning. So fight, flight, freeze, fawn. FAWN. And so this is when it's not trying to solve something from a grounded place, but we go into this like, shoot, I gotta solve it. If I just fix the situation, they won't leave me. Everything will be okay. The conflict will end, or like they're gonna stay, or they won't dislike me anymore. There's like this need. All of these are ways of trying to protect ourselves from losing the thing we desire most, which is love and connection and feeling like we belong. So in those moments of creating these stories, we actually trigger I'd say an old history of us, which is a younger version of our brain and our body, and it's not able to really make wise decisions. This younger part of us is so scared. And so what I encourage people to do is one of the first things you can do to come back into you now, whatever age you are, is just to breathe. Breathing helps open things back up and helps you know that you are just creating a story. It's just a story. It may be true. Maybe there's some truth in it, and that's okay too, but we don't know for sure. And when we breathe, we can start to get curious. And that curiosity is so crucial for us to be able to break the patterns.
Uh, yeah, I've been in that position many times. Maybe not about losing love, but when you get the nervous system right, is when it's out of whack, when you cannot control yourself, when you cannot think clearly, and we will go later. We will discuss about curiosity that I'm fascinated by it. But I feel with the stories shape what we experience,
Oh, so
and
much.
we don't realize how conditioned we are to the stories that are being created without even us realizing.
Oh my
But
gosh, spot on.
I think that is even more fascinating, by the way, which I, I want to understand why this happens, and experience on my when I was married, and I've seen from other people is that two people can experience the exact same argument. Say me and my ex-wife were just arguing, one night, and we would go the next day to try to talk about it. I would find out that the narrative that are created around that conflict, around completely different. We were talking about
Completely
completely
different.
and to me, it's like, well, obviously you're not understanding me, and I'm not understanding you because
Yeah.
we're talking about different things.
Yeah.
Why? I mean, it's still I haven't been able to figure that one
Yeah.
yet. I
It's
don't.
amazing. Right? It's amazing. My
Okay.
favorite class that I teach, when I teach it in person, the name of the
Mm,
class, if you go on my website,
mm,
relearnlove.com, the name of the class is called The Game of Love. And the whole point of this class is to help people understand that we all learned love before the age of 7. We had a model ingrained in us. We learned from watching our parents or parent, whoever our caregivers were. We learned from our school system. We learned from our relatives and our communities, especially in religious communities. We learn from the movies and the books and the music, right? Like there's so many messages about what is love? What is a relationship? What does a good husband look like? What does a good wife look like? What do we do? We have all these just really imprinted in our nervous system. And whether or not we agree with them, we grow up and we hold on to these stories. And a part of us is still going to be seeking that, whether or not it's the healthiest thing. And then we have these experiences in life that just keep like we're really freaking lazy, honestly, Daniel. Like our brains are just lazy and we want to find anything that reminds us of something and drop it in the same bucket. So if it's like, oh, you looked in a certain way, which then reminds me so much of what my mom used to do to me when I was a kid. So you must be like my mother. I'm putting you in this bucket, right? And in some ways it's wonderful for our survival and it helps us like understand the landscape, but in so many other ways it trips us up. So what you believe is happening right now, your reality is not the reality of the person next to you at all because their life experiences and what they have gone through and their strategies they developed are so different than yours. So you can be sitting in the same room having the same cup of coffee, but something happens and you're going to have very different, or even in that moment, you're still having very different experiences. And unless we start talking about the inner landscape of what's happening for people, you don't even know. You just keep assuming that the other person is experiencing something so similar to you. So I love to play this game with my clients. They call it snapshot. And it's like if you were to take a picture of your inner landscape right now, like we just freeze and we play a game, what's happening for you right now? It's really fascinating to see what comes up. Like even right now, we're on a podcast. We're both in a podcast. Sounds like we're having like the same experience, but we're not. And if I ask Daniel, what's going on for you? How are you interpreting this? What does this remind you of? You're going to have totally different things and emotions going on for you than what I'm having. And both are valid, right? Based on our life experiences. So if we can stop projecting and assuming and expecting the other person to get us without us explaining and sharing and opening up and asking good questions, we're going to keep doing this thing instead.
yeah, maybe our brains are lazy. I like to say that they're efficient, but maybe they're just lazy.
Efficient's a much nicer way of saying it. I like that. We'll go with efficient. They're very efficient.
Yeah. But yeah, but you know what is fascinating about that? The effort that a brain, the effort that a brain puts into creating a very compelling story of what's happening, because we truly believe it. We might have
Oh, yeah.
evidence that says otherwise, but the story around it is no, that's not what is happening, which it it assigns the how we feel about it. We can reframe all we want, but the initial moment is what is going to activate our nervous system,
Totally.
or make us understand maybe she didn't mean it, maybe he didn't mean it. But you know what? One thing that I don't understand was what happened. I think that many couples don't understand how they, I wouldn't say they self sabotage. I think that is like something far deeper. It's like we often assume the worst about the people we love the most, especially during
Mhm.
conflict. Is, is it because our fear of being, I don't know, hurt is stronger than the desire of connection, or just to be understood?
Yeah. So a couple things I want to side note and come back to
Okay.
Byron Katie.
Mhm.
I'm just going to put that up there and we're going to come back.
Hmm.
Now, villainizing. We love to create villains out of our partners, anybody who's close, but really our partner is the best person because almost all of our trauma, and I say trauma, when I say trauma, there's two different kinds of trauma that I might reference. One is capital T trauma. This is like really terrible things that have happened to some people, things like war and rape, these things that cause PTSD. Then there's also a lowercase t trauma, and this happens to all of us before the age of 7. And it could be something as simple as you were a baby laying in your crib and you were crying. Your mom walks towards you to pick you up, but then the doorbell rings and she decides, I'm going to go through the door first and then I'll come back to the baby, knowing the bigger context. And she walks away from you and you didn't know the context. You didn't have the tools and resources to do anything about it. And so this moment in time creates a rupture and your nervous system decides, I'm going to have to take care of myself and I need to find ways to protect myself. And this is where the strategies begin. So that causes lower T trauma. We all have trauma. So when we're looking at, what happens in romantic partnerships, we oftentimes are attracting what feels efficient for us, right? We're attracting the feelings we know and the scenarios we know. So if we know one of our parent figures to be very unpredictable, we will probably attract a partner that in some way is going to be very unpredictable. And we're like, why do I keep doing this? Or they remind me of, and they're going to remind you of. And in this scenario, we go to the big extreme. We create the villain. We go back to the fears when we were little and make them even more Bollywoodified, right? Even more dramatic. So what I love to do is just bring a little bit of levity to this with my clients. And oftentimes I'll have partners sit down with pieces of paper. And I'm like, I want you to draw the villain, the caricature villain of your partner. When you get triggered, what do you make your partner to be? Show me. Draw it as grotesque as you want. Give it a name. Give this character a name. Because it's not your partner. This is your projection of the villain that they become. And it's hilarious to watch. And then we get to explain to our partner, this is what I project upon you when I am triggered by my own crap. And you're taking ownership of, this is yours. It's not actually you. I can separate that idea that I am projecting this on you. It's still what comes up for me. And we can start to separate that idea that this is not them. This is your trauma. And how do we find the humor in that? And you can start calling it out and being like, oh, I'm noticing Lord Voldemort is appearing for me, right? Okay, we know how to handle a Lord Voldemort. We have some things we can do with that. And usually when one person's villain comes out, it will trigger the other person to make their villain come out, right? And not in every case, but in most couples, I see an interesting power dynamic that happens. We call it one up and one down. Or one person gets really big and like, scary, and the other person gets really small and pulls back. And so the projections of the villain, one may look really big and angry and, controlling. The other person may look super weak and can't handle anything in life. And these are like, neither one is the truth, right? This is just the projections of the villains that we're creating them to be. And so finding the humor in that can be really great for connecting us and realizing it's our own stuff.
When you were explaining why we do these things, it reminded me uh, several episodes I had in my marriage back then when I was married. It was a little bit frustrating. I didn't understand this as well as I do it now. But I would just mention a few things to my ex-wife for whatever reason, and she would feel that I was putting her down, that I was attacking her. And to me, at the first couple of years, I was like, okay, let me explain. That's not what I meant. This is what I meant. But longer, after 5, 6, 7 years, I would get hurt. It's like, me. What do you're offending me, thinking that I'm trying to put you down. I'm trying to offend. I'm trying to insult you. I'm trying to just step over you. I'm not. You should know how much I care about you. What I didn't know back then, those were, as you said, all wounds that she was projecting, and those
Yeah.
came again from childhood with her mom and all of that. And if it's sad because I don't think that many people are aware. How do you think? I mean, how can people become aware of this? That is not their partner, is themselves trying to protect themselves from getting hurt instead of trying to be understood, because the fear is far greater than the desire.
Well, how do they do it? They listen, like, comment, subscribe to your podcast, and then share this with the people they know that need this, right? This is the first step, and it's really important. Like, this is important. So learning these skills and starting to realize that it's not you and you're not alone. Very few people, I think I've met like 2 in my lifetime, ever took a class growing up in the formative years around how to communicate and how to be with our emotions and how to really handle conflict well. And all of these skills are what's needed to navigate relationships. And so we're expected to be good at being in a partnership. There's this like social pressure that you're going to be good at it. But none of us learned how. And most of us didn't have perfect models. Perfect. Okay, I'm
No,
going to say no
no,
one had a
no,
perfect model.
no,
Right?
no,
In
no.
every class I ask, in every class I teach, I like to ask, okay, I want you to count how many happy, healthy, long-term couples do you know? And it can be anything, however you want to define it. What is happy to you? What is healthy to you? What is long-term to you? And then at the end, I give like 30 seconds, I count them all. And you just have to know them personally. It can't be like a celebrity. And we take a few seconds, and I know how this is going to go. It doesn't matter how full my room is. If I say, if you know 10 or more happy, healthy, long-term couples, raise your hand, I will maybe have 5% of the room raise their hand. Maybe. It's more like usually 1%.
And that's their
And then,
perception, by the way.
right, and this is their perception, right? And then I'll just jump to five or more. 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. 90% of every class or more that I've ever taught has been between 0 and 3. 0 and 3 couples that they know personally who are happy, healthy, and long term. So where are all these great examples that, and why are we supposed to naturally be good at it? And then there's this social shaming put on top of it that to go learn, right? If I said, Daniel, I'm going to start a business, I hired a business coach. Be like, yeah, Eri, of course you did. You're going to learn from their mistakes. You're going to have strategies in place. You're going to have a strong foundation. You're going to make money faster. Great. If I said, Daniel, I'm going to learn how to play tennis. I'm hiring a tennis coach. Of course, Eri. You're going to learn the proper form. You're not going to screw up your shoulder and have to go back years later and fix that because it's in pain. You're going to be playing at a higher level faster, having more fun, playing with people who are more advanced. Of course you are. If I said, Daniel, I hired a therapist or a relationship coach. Most people are like, oh, I'm so sorry. Things must be really screwed up. I'm like, what? What? Where is this divide?
Well, to be fair, people wait until the very when everything is like when it's too late to find help. So I see it, but it's still, yeah. I mean,
Right, but
it
if
makes a
we
ton of
stop
sense.
that mindset, if we were like, I want to learn something, I'm going to go learn it, instead of waiting until like the divorce word is dropped. Can you imagine how much more fun and connection you'd have if you were like, we just started dating. We are 6 months into our relationship. We're through the new relationship energy, the NRE phase. The bubbles are starting to wear off and we're starting to see each other for real. Now is the exact right time to go start working as a professional so we avoid 90% of the pitfalls. Whoa, how many more relationships would be wonderful? And or you'd have the clarity to be like, no, like a few months in, like this is not working for us. This is not what we want. Great. I'm not going to waste years of my life on this when it's not what we desire.
Do you think that is ego or fear or something? Because I do believe that based on what you just said now, that even after the first 6 months, maybe 9 months, hey, let's go to a couple of, let's try to truly learn how to communicate well, how to understand each other. Because if you see the numbers, according to data, 56% of the marriage and in divorce, how many of the 44 remaining are in a relation? They're together because of the kids, because financial reasons, maybe 25%, I don't know. And you have what, 10, 15% of happy? It's like, it's sad. And it seems like everyone's like, okay, it is what it is. We just have to go through it. Boy, you don't have to.
You don't
If
have
you
to. You don't have to. And it takes a lot of courage to decide I'm not going to do that. We're not going to do that. And you're going against culture, against mainstream culture so much. I mean, you to choose to work with a professional to learn how to be in relationship is such an act of vulnerability and courage, and it's scary for many people. So, I mean, number one, there's that you're supposed to be good at love and relationship naturally. Number two, sharing your dirty laundry, sharing your personal stuff with somebody else can be so scary for a lot of people. Even and a lot of people have never worked with somebody who can hold space for them and not judge them, right? To just be like, what do you got? It's cool. Like whatever you've got, I can handle, and I can love you in that space and help you not feel alone and navigate this. So you don't have to keep spinning in it, right? And we can keep it all confidential. It doesn't, like, there's so much there that people don't understand is possible. And then I see two other things. One, there's also a lot of globally, there's a lot of pressure that, like, there's an old story that men are supposed to be strong. and men are not supposed to be vulnerable, right? And I have to be careful with this one. And then the women are hearing the same story. And yet I hear, and this is so this is so generalized, so please forgive me, I'm gonna go way out. But a lot of times when I see clients, it's like the women are like, I just want him to open up. I just want him to share his heart. But the women have been hearing the same story, that men are strong and shouldn't be vulnerable. So the moment their man feels like, okay, it's safe, I've got this, she's got me, I'm going to open up, and he shares his heart, and she sees that vulnerability, which is then interpreted through the lens of culture of this is weakness, which it's not at all. She freaks out and doesn't know how to handle it. And then he says, see, it's not safe. And he goes back inside to be strong, right? And basically just closing himself off. And I see this dynamic a lot of like, no one has learned how to actually be with their emotions and allow the other person to be with their emotions. And it's not to be about being against each other, but it's like two people sitting in a coffee shop having their own experience. Both are equally valid. How do we witness each other and empathize and reflect without judging or attacking or taking it personally? This is where the magic comes in. You can do it with a stranger, but you can't do it with your beloved. It's wild.
Uh yeah, I you know what? I it's interesting because we tend to assume the worst out of our loved ones, as we
Yeah.
said earlier, because are the ones that have the power to truly hurt us. Somebody
Yeah.
that I don't know, it can do whatever unless they inflict physical pain. They can, I mean, they cannot do that much to me. But those who truly love you, that is where the moment that you express vulnerability in a sense that, hey, you matter to me, I love you, and I matter to you, that is the point where loving somebody is accepting the fact that you're going to get hurt at some point, whether it's unintentionally because we're going to hurt each other because we're humans, we're flaws, or you're going to break up, or you're going to, or the person is just going to die, right? It's just like nature of life.
Something will happen.
So loving somebody, it requires a lot of courage because it
So
requires that
much.
that for in order for you to love somebody, you're going to experience pain at some point.
Yeah.
And it's tough, it's hard because I do see your point in terms of men that are afraid of opening up and they bottle a lot, and that's why a lot of men commit suicide in their world, especially after a breakup or divorce, because their only emotional support is no longer there. So changing that narrative, changing, hey, we can. Luckily for me, I guess I would say I was lucky, if, if you can call it that way. I've been going to therapy since I was 7 because I had ADHD. So to me, therapy has always been normal. If I'm
Normal,
struggling with
yeah.
something, I just go to therapy. But for a lot of men, it's not. And I like when you this, and this is way back what you said almost at the beginning when it comes to trauma. I like to call it, I guess, for me, emotional wound, because to me, trauma, people tend to attach too much to their identity. Like, no, I have trauma, whatever the trauma is, and but you can heal that. That doesn't have to define who you are or how you love or how you feel or what you experience. Which it takes me to the self-sabotage loop, where it's almost like we start a fight, we create distance, we pull away, just to confirm a belief that we already hold about ourselves, like we're too much, we're too needy, or not lovable. It's almost like we see ourselves in that way because we experienced something way back, and the other person left us because we were too needy, and now we're creating conflict, we're creating distance, just to prove to ourselves, yes, see, I knew it, I knew it was going to happen.
I
So it's like a
knew it.
self-fulfilling prophecy. Yes.
Yeah.
So how do people even see that, understand that, hey, I'm just
Mhm.
I'm just sabotaging myself. I'm not. None of this is real. I'm creating all these problems in my mind.
Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful question. So I have like so many things I want to talk about. I'm like, yes, I love this. It's so good. Let me start with, where do I want to start? Let me start with, I'm gonna go back. Remember, I bookmarked Byron Katie. Let me come back to her for a minute now.
Yeah, yeah.
So, for anybody who's not familiar with the work of Byron Katie, she's amazing. She's some really awesome tools, and her idea is that 99% of the world's suffering is caused by the thoughts we have in our head and the stories we create. And if we continue to create these stories, then we act on those stories, and then that's where even more suffering comes from. And it's really fascinating to start playing with this. So she created something called The Work. And basically, it's 4 questions that you get to ask yourself when you notice one of these stories coming up. So maybe there's something like maybe the phrase like my husband and I were in a fight, I think, and maybe he creates a story of, or maybe I create a story. I'll say I create a story of I'm not good enough, right? And I'll make it even a little bit bigger, like in a situation with him, like I didn't I didn't, oh, we had a dinner situation once with like hot sauce. I think you'll see it in my TEDx talk. But in that situation, I didn't get enough hot sauce for his dinner, which sounds funny, but it was a thing. And in my mind, then I immediately retreat into the story of I didn't do it right. I'm not good enough. Right. And I could even say, and I will be abandoned. Right. I can go even deeper. So I didn't do it right. I'm not good enough. I'm going to be abandoned. This is a story that I've created in my head. Now, if I believe that story, then how will I act towards my husband? I'm going to shut down. I'm going to pull back. I'm going to withdraw love because I'm not deserving of love. Right. So this is that self-fulfilling prophecy, right? It's starting to happen. I created the story. I'm really believing it's true because it feels true in my body because of my old stuff when I was little. And now I'm pulling back my love to protect myself from, he's going to leave me anyways. I might as well just start protecting myself now. And then what does he feel? He sees me pulling back, and then he starts creating his stories. And his story, like for my husband, like we're very clear on what our stories are. His story, his usual go-to is, she doesn't prioritize me. She doesn't consider me. I'm going to be abandoned. So here I am pulling back my love. He's like, she's not considering me. She's pulling away from me. I'm going to be abandoned. So then he starts protecting himself, right? Now we've got 2 people that we could have just shared what was happening for us. And I'll tell you how in just a moment. But instead, we believed these stories and acted on them. And now the spiral is beginning, like really getting into it. So these 4 questions are super important. The first question she asks is it true? Yes or no? Is it true? So is the story I created, I didn't do it right, I'm not good enough, I'm going to be abandoned. Is it true? A part of me is like, yes, it's true. And another part of me is like, ah. The second question is it absolutely true? Is there no way that this could just be a story? And the answer is always no. There's always more possibilities. So the first one you might be like, yes. The second one you're like, no. Okay. Third question is, who am I when I believe that story? Like, how do I act? How do I show up when I believe that story? Well, and I believe that story, I'm pulling back. I'm getting small. I'm withdrawing. I'm protecting. And the fourth question is, who would I be without that story? Well, if I didn't believe that story, I would have more room to be curious about what is really going on with us and to see if there's something else possible. I might be able to have a deeper conversation with my husband instead of running away. Like, what else is there? And just taking a moment to ask yourself these 4 questions can shift so much because you realize that you're being consumed by a story and not reality, and you can start to get curious again. And that curiosity is the magic that we all really, like, I'm trying to ingrain this in my children, like, just be curious. Anytime you feel like you're judging someone or you're being judged, just get curious because there's so much more available to us if we really find out what's going on.
Yeah, I have a couple of things about that because it's fascinating. I think the first one, I think, is the emotional reasoning that I feel that in our head, I feel it, therefore it's true. No, the emotion might be real, but that doesn't make it true.
Right.
And I don't think that we really pay attention to that. It's like I might be afraid of even taking a job interview, but I feel the emotion. That doesn't mean that my body's in danger. I'm
Right.
just terrified based on the, and if we can just separate those two, like, hey, I feel
Yeah.
it is real, but I don't have to believe it. It's the same thing with the stories. Yes, the story might have been created, but that doesn't make it real.
Yeah.
And I don't want to sound like a broken record, but I've said it so many times on the podcast, that it doesn't matter who I'm talking to, Eri. Seriously. It doesn't matter the topic. It could be burnout, it could be relationship, it could be dating, it could be procrastinating. Doesn't matter. It seems like the almost everything in life can be solved with curiosity.
Yes.
Everyone's answer is get more curious, trying to understand better. And when I'm trying to say it's like creating more empathy that I think people are lacking. And I'm not talking about let me feel like you're feeling. No, let me try to understand how you see the world, because
Yes.
that is exactly where, by doing that, then you feel seen, you feel heard,
Yes.
you feel heard and understood, and that sort of creates that bridge, or just build that bridge that okay, now we can connect.
Yes.
But as we know, when our nervous system is all crazy, we don't think rationally. We
No.
just don't.
No.
Do you have any techniques when we are all like, okay, I feel like strongly, I feel like I'm scared, I'm angry, I feel that I'm gonna be abandoned. I have all these stories. I cannot even take a moment to take a breath because I'm
You're
just
triggered.
so exactly.
Yeah. So I love talking with you. I have a million. My brain is like all these sticky notes of like things I want to touch on.
Yeah.
I'm like, it's so good. So let me say, first of all, there's a really. I don't want to overwhelm people with too many things. But just first of all, know that trauma responses are normal, and going into this overwhelmed state is normal. It's okay. When I say normal, I mean like everybody experiences it in some form. And if you watch my TEDx talk, there's a really nice 3-step thing that you can do for just expanding your bubble of awareness to calm down. You can also find the one that works for you. There's so many great tools out there, right? And the going through Byron Katie's 4 questions, another really great thing to like pause when you notice you're being consumed. But really, the most essential thing is to allow yourself to pause. That pause will give you so much chance to begin to find the peace again. Because when you're in that triggered state, you feel like you have to run from the saber-toothed tiger, but there is no tiger. So pausing, I love, this is going to sound funny. I love bathroom stalls. It's socially acceptable to say, I need to go to the bathroom. And then go into a bathroom stall and just breathe for a moment. Like just really take space and come back into yourself, because you know that, I don't know, for me, the sensation of being flooded, to be overwhelmed, I just like my whole world, but it's like tunnel vision, and my nervous system is like this, and I can't think straight, and I know I'm in it, but I don't know how deep I'm in it until I'm coming out of it. I'm like, whoa, that was wild. So this survival technique, this survival strategy that's in us is beautiful, but we don't need it as much as we're using it in today's society. So calming down and just coming back to your breath and say, using the cultural, like, it's okay, I'm going to step aside and go to the bathroom, is so helpful. Allow yourself to do that. Or go to your car. If you're driving, pull over the side of the road. If you're feeling this, like, don't drive like this, but just pull over the side of the road and just take a moment to breathe and allow yourself to come out of your brain and survival mode back into your full self. It's so good. So that would be a big starting point I would share.
Okay, I love that. Well, I love that bathroom stall because it it signals the other person, hey, I'm not walking away from you. I
Yeah.
just need a moment to go to the bathroom, and I might not do anything. I might just sit and breathe.
Yeah.
But it's in the person that you're not walking away, that you're not abandoning
Yeah.
them, whether it's a friend, family member, or your partner, which is great. And I was just thinking about what you just said earlier about Byron Katie, and she's like 99% of the things are created in our head. So basically, that means that we believe that we might be victims of circumstances, but in reality, we're victims of perception. It's all how the angle we just give to events we experience, and if we change that perception, if we find a way to reframe, and well, part of it would be with the curiosity you were talking about, that okay, we can create cures. Okay, if I can change the story and make it believable, then my brain biochemistry will change. I will feel better. I won't
Yeah.
feel so crazy about it. But I think it is to me, and this is, I wish I knew this while I was married. I wish a lot of this inside I knew, but I guess I had to go through them and learn the hard way.
You
But
gotta learn.
I think that when two people in a relationship are willing to ask themselves a question like, how am I complicit in whatever's going on here that is
Mm-hmm.
not working? Chances are they're probably going to have an incredible relationship. We both can ask themselves that question. What am I doing that is influencing things that are not going right, because I can take ownership, can take accountability of, hey, I'm responsible for my actions, for my feelings, for my emotions, for my words, and my partner as well, and we both reach to that point. then we know that we don't is that we can control those. Therefore, the relationship should flourish. Seems
Mm.
like.
Yeah, I'm gonna lean into this a little bit more. So I would say yes, I agree with you, and allow yourself to be complex. Like there are many. I think people like to get attached to one thing. Like I'm angry, and you're not. Not every part of you is angry. If we really looked at it, I would find out that if you got into a fight, a part of you is angry, a part of you is sad, a part of you is scared, a part of right. Like we're complex creatures, and sometimes we need to give ourselves that expansion to be complex. So when we're looking back at like how do we create these relationships, I think another piece of it is how do you stay in integrity with yourself, especially when most of us have learned all these strategies that we think are protecting us and keeping us in love that are self-sacrificing. We are afraid to be ourselves. I think the word is integrity. Like are we in integrity with ourselves and sharing that with our partner? So what that would look like is, there was a study that I was recently reading that the average person lies 2 to 3 times every 10 minutes.
Huh.
And
Or
it is especially we lie by like somebody asks how are you doing and we say good when we're not good. We lie by putting on a smile when we're not feeling like smiling because that's the social thing to do. How many times do we lie to ourselves? Right? It's like,
all
oh,
the time, all the
all the
time, all the
we lie to ourselves all the time.
time.
So it's all these little lies going on, and we're not aware of it, and each one is adding weight to the relationship, adding weight to what we're carrying. So every time you are doing something to people please, and I'm not saying that negotiation is really important in relationships, but this idea of self-sacrifice is usually really toxic. So what is it instead to own this part of you? So in a conversation, let's say my husband says, "Hey, Eri, can you watch the kids on Friday night? I want to go do something." Instead of just saying yes because I want to like take care of him, which is the way I was raised, I'm like, oh yes, instantly yes, I need to do it because I'm a people pleaser, right? That's my side. Instead of saying yes, we actually have a little more of a depth to the conversation. It's a little bit more nuanced, and I get to tune in and say, okay, on a scale of 1 to 10, the part of me that wants to take care of you really, really is like, I'm like, oh, I just want to take care of you. Okay, that's really big. So it's probably like that part of me is like an 8 right now. Like I would want to take care of you. But if I'm looking at the other parts of me, a part of me was really looking forward to, like asking you to stay home and watch a movie with me and the kids. Or a part of me was hoping that you'd watch the kids because I wanted to go out. And it doesn't mean that somebody has to be right or wrong, or I have to attack, or I have to people please and then build resentment. We just have that nuanced conversation and figure out what works best with us. And through getting to the nuance, that's where we can discover each other's truths and what the real negotiation is that isn't going to lead to resentment later on. Right. And then he can say, oh, hearing that, like a part of me feels, really glad that you're not people pleasing me. Another part of me feels really excited that you want to spend the night with me. And another part of me is like potentially open to you going out. And another part of me is sad that you're not just like a yes, right, to letting me go out. And it's like, okay, we get to have all that there. And now what do we want to do with it? And if we play more with a scale of 1 to 10 and we find the win-win situation of like, is there anything else you wanted to go out with your girlfriends and do? Maybe you can do it on Saturday. I'll take the kids on Saturday and you take the kids on Friday and let's have a date on Sunday so everybody wins. Great. We just discovered that, but we wouldn't have discovered it if we didn't get curious and we just went straight to our initial reaction, which is often, not always, but oftentimes a little bit of a lie, especially for people pleasers.
Uh, yes, that uh, for I think that you probably touch a nerve, something that I've been working on for a few years now. That I grew up in a place or in an environment that I felt, I guess, or the story that my brain created, that my needs were not important. And
Oh,
other people's needs were more, maybe because I was the oldest, maybe. I don't know. I have no idea. But the point is that anytime that I was in a relationship, I was like, to me, just like you, hey, yes, I know that I'm trying to gain your love. It just so natural to me that I don't feel resentment, I don't feel anything. But I only realized when one time after being to it for 6 or 7 years or so, she asked me, so what do you want to do? I was like, I have no idea. No, tell me. I was like, have you never thought about which restaurants? Like, no, I haven't thought about what I wanted for.
Yeah, because it's safe or not, because you're not going to get that mad anyways, right?
Yeah,
Oh,
so why getting disappointed? Why
yeah,
thinking and get the disappointment? And but what you just brought was like, so I love that example and about you and your husband and the Fridays, whether it was real or not. But it's because that those small things that we don't even realize because we go on autopilot. Yes, I want to serve you, I want to help you, but we don't even take care of ourselves. And I remember after when the marriage was falling apart, I was taking myself as a priority. And I remember one time being called out. He said, "Oh, so now you have your priorities," but that came from a place of hurt. It didn't. I didn't take it personally because I got curious. Like, why is she saying this? Well, of course, I conditioned her for so many years that she was always the priority. I know me, and I love that because we don't see that. And there's so many people out there who think I'm not a people pleaser. Maybe you're not doing it with an ulterior motive. Maybe you're
yeah,
not doing it because you're trying to gain love and validation. You do it because that is your natural response based on your conditioning when you were growing up, which is like,
yeah.
it's
And
tough
that's
it's
another
tough to find out.
example. I love how you shared that and such a tender journey that you've been on, it sounds like. And just like this idea that you learned how to not actually desire or tune into those desires and then ask for what you want because it didn't feel safe. And that is another example of how are you out of integrity with yourself? Your true self knows what it wants and knows or is ready to discover, even if you're like, I really don't know. Okay, well, this is a time to figure out who are you and what do you want, and play with the fact that you're no longer a child, you're an adult, and you can learn the tools to take care of yourself and have that emotional resilience of even if it's a no, but it doesn't have to be a no. There's so much more possible, right? Like we can figure out the perfect schedule. We can find a way for you to order tacos and me to order Italian and we're all both happy. Like it's okay. It doesn't have to be. And we can have a great picnic in the park and make it an adventure we never even imagined because we were so stuck on one of us has to win. But you both get to. And you get to honor your intentions and your integrity through that process if you want to.
And even if it's a no, that doesn't mean that the story is real.
Right. Right.
Be- which is it is hard yeah, okay, I can think that when I have a clear mind, but sometimes we try it once, we get, see, I knew it, and it's like, no, try it again, because you never know you need more evidence than just like, okay, I tried once in 10 years and it was a no, I knew it. So it's interesting. And I think that when you were talking about how we project, is I think somebody said, I think I wrote a quote here, and I think if I'm not mistaken was Alain de Botton. He said that the catastrophe you fear will happen has already happened. The key thing
Mm.
that it has been forgotten. You forgot the catastrophe, and that's why you keep seeing in the future, whereas it's actually belong in the past. So we keep
Oh,
projecting.
I have
Yes, I was
goosebumps.
like,
Whew.
yeah.
Yeah.
And just to tie it up with the other one, based on you said how if we grow up in an environment where some people are not reliable and we find unreliable partners, he said that we like, our brains like what is feels familiar and natural. And so he says we're not a quest not to find love, but to find ways to suffer in which they feel familiar. It's
Yeah.
just we want to close the loop. We want to have a better ending. We want to be
Yeah.
able to control, because we weren't able to do it with our parents because we didn't have the skills or the money or the strength of anything.
Agency. Yeah. Yeah. And here's the thing is when you are choosing to be in partnership, you are pretty much choosing to relive some childhood stuff, crap. and
Yeah.
and you can either choose to be poison or medicine for each other. The poison is just repeating that same harm over and over and over again. The medicine is choosing, I'm going to help this person rewrite that script and have a different ending because you can. And when you go in with that awareness that, like, I'm here to help my partner have a different ending to their trauma is very different, very different. And it's beautiful. And that requires you to realize that it's not about you. You have to stop taking it personally. When you guys get triggered, it's so easy to make it about, you're so sure it's about what they did or it's about the situation. You know, if every client who comes to see me, I can say, okay, here's the situation, yes, but what is it reminding each of you of? What is it really bringing up? What is that old situation, that old catastrophe that you are just in it again? And how can we help each other? Like, what do you need in this situation? What did you need as a kid that you didn't get? Was it the apology? Was it somebody taking responsibility for their actions that hurt you? Was it somebody saying, oh my gosh, I see you in your pain and that sucks and I'm sorry? And what do you need right now? Do you want a hug? Do I just hold you and be with you? That is the medicine. And then once that person is like, I call it out of the sandbox, but once that person is like, they're coming back out of that trauma response, they're coming back to being your partner again, because they were not your partner for a little while. They were reverted into their hurt little child. And then once they're done, maybe you were triggered and your hurt little child was there, and you can take turns and you can learn the skills. This is so much of what I do in my private work. This is, you can learn the skills of like, okay, now I can hold you. I have the capacity now to be with you. What did this bring up for you, and what do you need? How can I like love on you and reflect and empathize, and then together we can look at what you need, and then we both get the medicine. We both heal, and our nervous system is like, ah, this was possible. I didn't even know this was possible. Amazing.
Yeah, I know. So many times I feel like I'm talking. I feel that I like to ask my brain, "Are you working with me or just against me?" Because I don't,
Oh,
I don't get.
yeah,
But when it comes to triggers, one thing that helped me, just what opened my eyes, like, okay, and I start seeing triggers in a different way. Triggers are just information
yeah,
about where I'm not free. I just need to get curious to understand and why certain things are triggering me. So unless I'm in a relationship, I guess it's rare for me to get triggered by other people, other events, just because I've done like, okay, every time I get triggered, every time I get anxious or angry or sad or scared, okay, let me try to understand where that comes from. If I understand that, if I understand where the pain or the emotional wound is, then it will just it will be fixed. But I think that, I don't know if you used that in your practice, but when you were talking about it, I thought about it. Okay, this would be very, very effective when you have couples and you're trying to help your partner to have a better ending, or to help your partner to heal those wounds. If we see the person who they are now, it is, I guess, in you're in the heat of the moment, it is hard for you to have compassion. But in my mind, it's like, if I can imagine the person I love the most being a 5-year-old, a 12-year-old in pain, in suffering, I would have so much love and compassion. I just want to hold them and say, hey, you're going to be okay. By just having that mental exercise, that I'm not seeing a 30, 35, 40, 50, whatever
yeah,
year old, woman. I'm seeing a little kid who is scared, who is afraid, who is sad. And that just, you cannot, just be angry at that. I guess it just is almost impossible in our body. So I don't know if that's part of your exercise, but that's the
it's
first
huge.
image
It's a
that
huge
that
piece
came.
of what I do. Yes,
Okay,
it
okay.
is exactly that. And it's, I think you said it so well. My camera is doing weird things. I think you said it so well too when you were naming like, if this were not in my romantic relationship, it'd be easier, right? Like our partners just really bring out a different side of us. And it's like if I went to a park and I saw a little kid crying that I didn't know and he was like having a hard time, I'd be like, oh, that poor kid, he needs a hug. But if it's my husband who's throwing a tantrum, I'm like, that little jerk. This is totally about me, and I'm gonna go fight this, or I'm gonna run from it, or whatever it is, right? It's so different in our responses of how we would be with almost anyone other than our beloved.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah. Just having those reminders, I guess, like, hey, as you said, take a pause,
yeah,
and just do it. Because I think that what I've realized, just like with overthinking, with worrying, it's like the fear of suffering is way far worse than the suffering itself. And we just we have this armor. We armor up to avoid pain, that our nervous system just screams danger, and we cannot think logically, and we just want to protect ourselves. And it's like, okay, I get it, I understand it, let me just calm down, let me I understand that she might not have she might be wrong, Maybe, or maybe I'm wrong. I have no idea. Or maybe we're both wrong. But is it is a cliche phrase. I get it. Like, it's not you against me. It's us against the problem. But it seems like people need to have that on, everywhere. Like post-it notes
Tattooed on their
everywhere. It's like,
forehead.
yeah, exactly. Hey, let's work together, because it
Yeah.
seems like a battle for control, and I don't think it's even control. It's just, I don't think, no, I don't think that anybody wants control. Everyone wants to feel safe. We are just
Yes.
scared to even ask for that.
Yes. And we don't know how to do it as a team. We are using 7-year-old strategies in adult bodies, and we think the other person is against us instead of on our team. But if we can decide, oh, we're on a team and we are going to, instead of fight each other, we're going to be fighting for connection, is a very different approach. And when my husband and I start to get heated, and we've been together, we've got 2 kids, we've been together for a decade, and it's like when we start to get heated, we have consciously chosen a certain culture in our family. And you get to choose it. Remember, you've had decades of learning how to fight the unhealthy way or the inefficient way that's just going to keep things looping. But if you decide we are as a couple or we as a family are going to choose to fight differently, it can make all the difference. I have a whole class called Clash to Calm, and it really is about how you come back into this space and find each other again. But when these triggers come up, it's like, okay, I'm going to sit here, and then we're going to choose to breathe. That's what we're going to do first. So we both know we have a little signal, like a little timeout signal of like, okay, when this goes up, we're going to pause and we're going to breathe. No matter what's going on, it's not about saying you're doing something to me. It's about saying, wow, the energy is changing a lot. Like this is not going where we want it to go. The train is about to go off the tracks. Let's just pause here. And everybody's going to take 3 deep breaths with a verbal sigh on the exhale, because that verbal sigh tells our vagus nerve that we're safe. So we're going to like try to trip up the system, So just like, okay. And it's really annoying. Like when you want to fight and you want to go into your old patterns and you're like, dang it, I'm going to do this stupid breathing thing again. But you know what? 3 breaths in, you're going to feel so different that it's harder to continue with the old pattern that was there. And sometimes you got to try even crazier stuff. And there have been moments where like, let's just lay down on the ground, because it's very hard to fight laying down. It's funny.
I've heard of that one.
So there's lots of things you can try. Yeah, this is so beautiful.
Yeah, and I'm telling you, I feel that things could be so much better, so much quote unquote easier, if we had a better understanding, and if we put our ego aside. I think that a lot of it's just our ego protecting
Oh,
us, and I get it, but it's just like almost anything in life. If we let our ego run the show, I mean, we're not gonna even. It's not even happy in a relationship. We're not gonna be happy in work. We're not gonna be happy in friendship.
yeah.
Anywhere. And I do feel, and I don't know if you have any techniques in this regard, but people are very distracted lately, in a sense that that going inwards and understanding themselves without being self-absorbed, without having, okay, what are my patterns, let me identify my patterns so I can just understand, even if I'm just single and I'm
Mhm.
struggling getting into a relationship because of my own patterns. I'm getting in my own way, but I don't see that. Have you practiced a technique or something that, hey, let me try to be less distracted. Let me pay attention, because I think that we don't pay attention. We don't pay like nearly enough attention. So I don't know. I just something that it
Yeah.
would make it maybe less stressful, or just remove some barriers, I
Yeah.
guess.
Yeah. I think I'm going to take an approach that is not common. Yeah, I'm going to do it.
Awesome. Awesome.
Yeah. And for me, playfulness and fun and curiosity are really important. And even when I work with my clients, I like to call myself a dating dominatrix. Like I teach people through telling them what to do on how to have a real date that's connective instead of something that is just the routine. And even when I work with singles, it's like, how do you take yourself on a self date that's really going to nourish you? So in this way of playfulness, what do kids do when they're learning? They're playing, they're having fun, they're discovering, they're like following the curiosity. And so what I want to invite people into is, we've talked about a lot of things that might feel really heavy today, like, oh man, like conflict and trauma and and there was something really sweet that you touched on earlier. that I think could be magical for answering the question and being really fun, which is going back to this idea of I don't even know what I want. We are constantly teaching people how to love us. The way we move through the world, the way we respond to different things is teaching people this is how I want to be loved, not even romantically, just loved in life. And so much of it is unconscious because we haven't developed the awareness. We haven't taken time to think about it. So in order to start flexing this muscle, and yes, we can flex, it's going to be the same muscle of how do I feel love? It's going to be a very similar muscle to like, what are my patterns? It's just the awareness muscle of like, who am I and how am I living my life and how is it showing up? So here's your homework. I call it an invitation. Are you ready, Daniel?
All right, let's go.
Everybody listening, here's your homework. Okay. So I want you to get a piece of paper out, a big printer paper, and at the top write, I feel seen, heard, and loved when, or whatever words you want to use. I feel loved when, I feel seen when. And then in the middle, if you want to get artistic, draw a little stick figure of yourself. And then all around it, just answer the question. When do you feel seen, heard, and loved? It could be in your current romantic partnership. It could be in a previous one. It could just be not romantic, but in life in general. When do you feel seen, heard, and loved? And write those phrases out or draw little pictures with them. If you can do this with a best friend or with your beloved or with your child, anybody you're close with, this is going to be really amazing because then what you're going to do is you're going to share it with each other. And if you do it on your own, that's beautiful too. This is going to be flexing that muscle of awareness. When do you feel seen, heard, and loved? And I think what might be really helpful to think about is love languages, the 5 love languages. It's a wonderful little lens to play with. There's more to it, but okay, so I feel seen, heard, and loved when we dance in the kitchen, or when somebody compliments my hair or my eyes, or when somebody buys me really good dark chocolate or coffee, or when I receive an ear massage. Okay, so there are all these things. I'm like, oh, that's it, and it can come from different sources. So now I've got this cheat sheet that I can share with whoever I'm choosing to share it with. And it's a reminder for how I can love on myself and be with myself because I don't have to wait for somebody else to get me a good coffee. I can get myself a great coffee and love on myself. I can put music on and dance in the kitchen. I can give myself an ear massage. Like so much is possible if I want to go there and love on myself in those ways instead of waiting for somebody to do it for me in that external, like waiting. And the pressure on that person. Like how do you fill your own tank so that when you receive it, it's easier to receive too, which is great without feeling graspy. And then bonus points. After you've done this, also after you've walked people through, go back and say what it means to you. So can I share a story? Do we have time for a moment?
Sure, absolutely, yes.
So let me share a story. I said just a minute ago, I feel seen, heard, and loved when I receive an ear massage. And everybody who's listening, you all already have some sort of projection on what the heck that means to you or what you think it is. So don't answer out loud. On a scale of 1 to 10, hearing this random woman, Eri, wants to receive an ear massage, would feel seen, heard, and loved if she received the ear massage. On a scale of 1 to 10, how willing would you be to give me an ear massage right now with all that you know? 1 is no way and heck. 10 is let's go right now. Right? Mm-hmm. Now you get your number and it can have points in it. I don't care. Decimal points. Do you have a number in your head?
Yes.
Okay. So now that number is based on your lived experiences in life. It is based on your projections and what you know your lived experience to be. Now, if you say, Eri, what does it mean to you? Now I get to tell you a story and I get to say, Daniel, there was a point in my life. My husband and I were a full-time traveling family with a YouTube channel, 2 kids under the age of 2. We were in a new city or country every 4 to 7 days. And I was exhausted. All I remember from that period really was packing and unpacking and breastfeeding. And I lost myself into being a mom and lost myself into this thing we were creating, which was magical, but I was lost. And one night we got to Taipei and my husband said, babe, I got the kids. Go out, have fun. And I got beautifully lost in the city. And I've been a nomad all my life. So I was like, it just felt so good to be like, find me again. I ate really weird foods. Like I got to drink snake venom and, eat chicken feet. And yeah, I found out there's a way to eat chicken feet that I didn't know about. I had very poor form. And then I ended up meeting strangers and having great conversations. And somehow I ended up on the massage table of a little lady named Ling Ling. And Ling Ling looked like she was in her early 40s, but it turns out she was in her mid 70s.
Wow.
And she was just so happy. And turns out she's famous. And people from all over the world fly in to be on her massage table, and they book a minimum of 7 to 8 hours. Hours. And she just works on every little part of you. And when she's done, it feels like you have a new body. And you're like, what? And I asked her, I said, Ling Ling, what is your secret to a long and happy life? And she just smiled and laughed. And she's like, Eri, that's easy. 20-minute ear massage every day. So now,
Okay.
when I receive an ear massage, it's not just an ear massage, it's a reminder of coming back into myself, of freedom, of joy, of taking care of me and not just being a mom or not just being whatever it might be. So it's so much deeper than that. So now, knowing what it means to me, let's go back to the original question. On a scale of 1 to 10, how willing would you be to give me an ear massage? And just noticing, did the number go up at all? Even if it was a little decimal point, or if it was already a 10, great, it was already a 10, right? But
Yeah.
just noticing, did it shift, knowing a different perspective, a different side of the story, instead of assuming you understood, right? Did that make sense?
Yes. Yeah. I love the technique. I love the story. It's it's interesting because when you asked initially about the number, my number was already a 10, but I realized while I was thinking, it's like, okay, well, why is it 10? And a 10 was because the story I've always had about myself is I'm a giver, I'm not a taker, which
Mm,
it tied up to the point as I don't need anything from anybody because I don't want to get disappointed. But I realized that later on. Before it was, oh, it's such a kind way of living life, but you still need to nourish your soul by, I wouldn't say taking, but by accepting from others.
yeah,
And what you
receiving
said
is
up,
such an art.
yes, which is I'm a work in progress. I'm a work in progress. I'm getting there. I'm getting
Yeah,
there because even from my parents, I remember that they were here um this past December, and they were trying to help me with something. I didn't say anything, but in my head, it was like, "You don't have to. You don't." And that moment, I thought, "Wait, they're my parents. They love me. Why do I have to think that they don't have to?" So yes, and I loved about having the list of love languages because it seems to me what people believe is that, okay, these are my love language. That's how I love other people. No, you need to love other people based on their love language, because what do you
yes.
do? Which that's another mistake I made, but that's a different story. Yes, in and it's funny because I know how the things I need to feel love, to feel seen, that I don't think that I have exercised that muscle.
Yeah.
I've been playing with this idea that anytime that I on the podcast, I have this, either on the podcast or with my friends, I have this ability to be an excellent mirror. I make people feel seen, heard,
Yeah.
understood. It comes very easy to me.
Yeah.
But when people, it's funny, if I tell you something about my life, and we see each other in 6 months from now and 2 weeks from now, whatever. If you remember, in my head, it's like, of course she remembers because I told her. If you don't remember, of course she did it because we have so many things in life. Neither, both the scenarios don't affect me at all, like zero.
Mm,
But when I remember things about people, they feel like you remember and they feel touched. And I was like, why can I feel? I don't feel that. Why not? And then I guess it's part of the receiving, and it's part to just practicing that exercise. Hey, it's okay to receive from people, you're not taking from them. So I love the story, I love the exercise. We could go for hours, I have more
we could.
questions, but yeah, it's just like
I think that's a beautiful place.
yeah, fascinating. But as a closing question, if the child version of us is the one reacting in conflict, right, what would we look like to let the adult version of us take the mic instead?
Yeah. Yeah. I think the adult version is way more resourced than the child version. And we all have that. And there's a type of therapy I love called IFS, internal family systems. And with that, it's like there's these different parts of us, and some are, we call it the exiles. The exiles are pretty much the little kid that's stuck, and they're going to be stuck, and they just need to be loved. And we have all these different parts that protect us, that show up to like manage and control and fight. Nah, nah, nah. And then there's this part of ourselves that we call the healthy self or the self. And the self is available to all of us all the time. And so, how do we start to access that and realize that we are complex creatures and that we don't have to be ruled? We don't have to let the managers like control everything. And it's not going to help us get what we want. We don't have to push away that little kid. So I think when we are really coming back into ourselves, when these moments occur, we are remembering that we can come back to ourselves. We have the power and the resourcefulness to do that. We just have to practice because this is a muscle most of us never learned. So you can learn it. This is huge. Like accepting the fact that you learned something that is inefficient and designed to make sure you don't win, and you've been playing this game and believing you're supposed to be playing this game. It's like taking the pill in the matrix, right? It's like okay, well, you're choosing to understand that you don't have to play that game anymore. You get to relearn love and you get to create your own game. And this is going to look very different. And it's choosing to come back to yourself and be authentically you and still be loved and still receive love from others. And so it's making more grounded decisions from a place of knowing who you are and using all the tools we mentioned today of like, I don't have to go into those old patterns. I can choose a new practice and I can celebrate once I've chosen that because I see how powerful it is in getting me what I actually want. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that, and it's having the courage to take that pill, because once you see it, you cannot unsee it, and that can be scary for people. That
Yeah.
now the agency is on me, then I'm accountable, then I'm responsible of my own reality, of my own relationships, of my own experience,
Yeah.
and that can feel terrifying for a lot of people that were conditioned to be somewhat of a victim, and I'm not blaming them because they were. It's hard to hold people accountable to what they were oblivious to. It's just like, how can you if they didn't know that? So
Yeah.
I get it, and just understanding and reminding ourselves that we are wiser and we are stronger than that person that is showing up in arguments, that person that is showing up in. It's like we know better. We just need to take the wheel, say, hey, I got you. You don't
Yeah.
have to overreact. And yeah, Carrie was Eric, once again, it's just a beautiful conversation, and I love the work you're doing. I think way more people need to just understand that it is. I guess the problem that we addressed in the beginning was that it is a skill. People feel that love is a feeling, but love is an action. It's a skill that you develop, and you can have better. Even loving yourself, as you said, how can I do something for my own, which I'm learning, right? But yes,
Yay.
but where can people find you, work with you, anything?
Well, if they want to work, if anybody wants to, just get
Yeah.
in touch with me. I love talking to
Okay.
people, first of
Okay.
all. So, especially knowing that this is a really vulnerable subject, and sometimes the first step is not is just saying, "Hey, hi, hi." I don't even know what to say, but I feel like I'm supposed to message you. That's great. I can take it from there and help you start to open up what's alive for you, and we can figure out what that means, and whether that's doing a free course that I have or doing a do-it-yourself course. I've got lots online. My website is relearnlove.com, and in it I have so many different resources. And my greatest joys are speaking, so that you can see my TEDx talk, and also coaching and working privately with people. So it doesn't matter if you're single or in partnership or what the relationship structure is. It's really about like how do you learn the tools and then let it have a ripple effect. I want you to learn, and then I want you to teach it to your kids, and I want you to share it with your best friend. I want you to like demonstrate at the dinner table with all your friends that there's this other way of being that gets you what you want with fun and ease and without all this like denying of who you are and what you want, and you get to win this game. Everybody gets to win this game if you create a new game, and it's really available to you. So check out relearnlove.com. I'm on Instagram at Coach Eri Kardos, and I would love to hear from you. I think even if you sign up for my newsletter, my signature has my WhatsApp number. Ooh, that's so scary, right? But you can literally click on it and message me because I really want to be accessible for people, and let me know where you're at so I can witness and celebrate or support you.
Awesome. I love that. And people can need to understand that they can that the cycle can end with them, that they can just break the cycle, the generational cycle of
Yes.
repeating the same behavior and the same patterns. I love that. And Ari has been one of the most enjoyable conversation I have in a while. I feel, even though it's late at night here, I feel energized. I feel seriously, love your energy, your passion for it, and yeah, I'll have to bring you back at some point because it's still so many other questions I wanted to ask, but
I love
thank you
it.
for coming on the
Anytime.
podcast.
Thank you, Daniel. Thanks, everybody.